Anthony. He's Pomp. He is probably the most retweeted motherfucker on Twitter. He's got something to say about everything. How you doing?
I'm great. I don't know if I have anything to say right now, but we're going to find out.
Oh, I'll ask you some serious questions. What the fuck brings you to Singapore?
Binance conference.
Binance conference?
Yeah, look, I'm super impressed with CZ and the team. I think that they've taken a very interesting strategy to launch in this exchange.
The exchange here in Singapore?
Just in general across the world.
Yeah. I was going to say, because they're doing things
everywhere.
Everywhere. Like I actually think the biggest thing that they did recently was the UK exchange, or is it a UK exchange? The British pound?
Yeah, I think they're using the British pound.
Yeah. Where's it out of?
I'm not actually sure. But the whole thing, right, is just that they're doing some really interesting things, and then there was going to be a whole bunch of other folks that, like yourself and others, that I wanted to make sure I saw. So I came down and here for 2 days and heading back to New York.
Heading to New York? How many hours was that? Because I flew from Vegas. It's like 25 hours.
I'm in the middle of a New York to LA to San Francisco to Tokyo to Singapore back to New York trip, all in a week. So I honestly couldn't even tell you what day it is. When you come to Singapore, that's a long run. Yeah. All
right. So how's the podcast coming? I know you've been working on that.
Yeah, podcast is great. What started out as a little bit of a joke, a little bit of a kind of could I actually get this thing to grow, has gotten a life of its own. So
how big's your team?
Keep doing it.
You gotta have some support.
I've got 2 guys who help me with the podcast, and then the investment team is myself and my 2 partners, and we've got 1 analyst, and that's it.
Who's working their ass off every night to pump out that fucking email blast?
I write it every morning.
Every morning?
And knock it out, yeah.
Wow. I gotta be honest with you, I read that shit, and I actually try to figure out, is he cut and pasting most of this shit? And I've come to the reality, I haven't found one cut and paste from somebody else's shit. So you're either spending countless hours coming up with creative, original content on that fucking email, which I gotta say, hats off to you, or you've got a group of minions that are just pumping it out for you.
So somebody helps me with the bottom. They do the news section. I don't do that part, but the top section I write every morning from scratch. Basically wake up super early.
Just spit out fucking information.
It's like 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and just pump it out. Go about my day. Don't think about it again until the next.
I gotta be honest with you, that's pretty impressive because I've read it now for a while, and that's a lot. What are you doing? That's his phone. No, it's his. All right, we're just messing with you. All right, so I gotta admit, if that's really 45 minutes an hour of your time, you are A, a fucking grammatical genius. B, to spit out that much content in such a short time that is relevant is pretty impressive.
Yeah, there's nothing like being under the gun or of a deadline. And so when I wake up in the morning, I know that I've got stuff to do. So I've got, let's call it 45 minutes to an hour and a half of time to write it. Sometimes I just look around, don't know what I'm going to write about, sit and think, look around some more, and then just, okay, so I'm going to write about, and I just start writing, and I know that if I don't get it done, I'm not going to get it finished before I've got meetings or whatever. So just the deadline forces me to write it.
At what point did you become part cyborg?
Look, I've just got this belief that if you just get started, it takes on its own life. And so the podcast, the newsletter, all that stuff is just fun, right? It's the investing is what I spend 90% of my time on.
That's cool. Okay, so you've got the podcast, you got the newsletter. In the next 90 to 180 days, what are 3 things that you see coming in the crypto horizon or in the Pomp horizon?
Next 90 days, I think we'll keep going sideways with prices for a while. Maybe we'll get a little bit of a drop. So I don't think there's any recovery at least coming in the next 90 days. I'm really bullish on this idea of all the kind of institutional investors continue to come into the space. I think they're a lot more interested today than they were 6 months ago. We should be making some announcements there for some funds that we've raised. And then I'm contemplating launching another podcast and doing a daily one. We'll see if I do it.
Yeah, I think you're batshit crazy. How could you even do all that? You got the newsletter daily, you got the podcast daily. And by the way, I've actually sent you 400 emails to be on the podcast. Are you checking your email? I haven't gotten a response.
I'm pretty bad about the email thing.
Really?
If I was showing somebody today, people just either message me on Telegram or they DM me on Twitter, and I happen to respond a lot faster there, which really annoys, I think, most of the kind of legacy financial world that we interface with, because they're like, dude, I've emailed you so many times and you haven't responded.
Is it true that you were really pissed off that they used the term pump and dump instead of pomp and dump? Did you actually have a Telegram group that was a pomp and dump group?
I did not have that.
All right. The SEC never watches my videos, so you don't have to worry about that shit. So with the government shutdown, what do you think affects crypto in the biggest way? Is it back to being pushed off all the way till September?
No, I don't think any of that stuff matters, right? It's just that I don't look at the price really. I don't pay attention to anything that's going on with the government. I don't pay attention to anything that people are building. The number one thing we need is just time. And so people are going to continue to build products, and the ones that people want to use.
What are some of the products you've seen here that stood out to you? And I'll be honest with you, that real estate fund,
yeah,
stuff like tokenization of real estate,
yeah.
I think is going to be the biggest thing of 2019, 2020, and 21.
Yeah, so I mean, look, in 2016, I came out and I said, I think that all these ICOs are absolutely ridiculous. I'm not going to invest in any of them. But I do think that...
I'll be honest with you, I didn't see that tweet, and it would have saved me a little bit of money.
and so when I did all this, people were upset, right? And I get it, that's fine. But what we saw was we started doing mining, then we got into more equity investments in like the venture funds.
Are you mining Grin?
We are not.
No? So you're the only one that's not mining Grin?
Yeah. I mean, look, I get why people are doing it, just not something that we wanted to do. But about a year and a half to 2 years ago, started writing about these tokenized securities, and again, all of the kind of people who are really excited about hardcore crypto, where that's not interesting, it's just redoing, stocks, bonds, currencies, commodities. Now all of a sudden, ICOs have kind of gone away. STOs now are all popular, and it's kind of.
I don't think they're that popular, because a friend of mine works for the SEC in a division where they basically take applications.
Yep.
Of the applications for tokenized securities,
yep.
Almost 3 to 1 is real estate related.
Yeah, so that doesn't surprise me. The other thing is most of the people I think are going to use Regulation D, which doesn't require any sort of filing with the SEC. And so like over time...
Well, it kind of does. It's an application process. It's a Reg D application.
Yeah, so basically, but like not before the fundraise, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can go out and fundraise, and then when you're done. So I think a lot of people are also going to try to do this and fail, right? And they're just going to say, hey, I'm going to go do a fundraise with tokens, and it's going to be security, it's going to be regulated. And they're going to find out that it doesn't matter whether it's regulated or not regulated. If we don't have a great opportunity, people just aren't going to use it, right? And so we'll see, right? It's the experimentation across utility tokens, ICOs, STOs, et cetera, is all important because, frankly, no one knows what the future holds, and so let's see what happens.
Yeah, I think we're creating the future. That's what it's been like for 10 years. Crypto is a creative vertical inside the fucked up finance and banking sector. I think it's based. I think crypto's whole model is to disrupt and change and crush the existing corrupt financial institutions.
Long Bitcoin, short the bankers.
That is true. How long you been doing? Why didn't you get the long Bitcoin, short bankers tattoo yet? I mean, CZ went all in. He got a Binance tattoo. No tattoos?
No tattoos.
No Pomp? Not even a Pomp tattoo?
My whole thing has just been, I think we've done a really bad job of communicating with folks about the different ideas in crypto, and so for whatever reason, I've been able to come up with these kind of one-liners, whether it's tokenize the world, the virus is spreading, long Bitcoin, short the bankers.
Now, when you say this virus, I've actually talked back and forth with you about it. Is it actual physical virus? Is it a mental virus?
So somebody told me, I think it was Marco Santori told me that back in like 2012, 2013.
Shout out to the lawyer in the UK.
People would talk about the mind virus. And I didn't know about this until he told me. And so it's this idea that like once you learn about this, you become so engaged and it opens your mind to just like, oh wow, something else is possible than the legacy system, that you then run around and you tell everybody, right? And so the virus is spreading is literally the idea that...
Is that something you came up with, or you read it out of a book or something?
The virus is spreading came completely just one day.
Now this is going to freak you out. I was actually taking a subway in New York to get to an event that we were throwing a dinner, and I'm not kidding you, right around, I want to say, 55th Street or 53rd Street,
yep.
There's a spray painted wall that says the virus is coming. And I actually thought to myself, That motherfucker Pomp is fucking spray painting shit. And I literally thought, I'm shocked I didn't take a picture and just like tweet it to you. Because I know that gets retweeted to all your people and you'll be like, big silly green. Yeah, that's me, motherfucker. Now, seriously, have you been tagging?
I have not. I
You don't keep a spray paint can around?
But if anyone sees stuff like that and they tweet at me, I will probably retweet it.
So you're not a tagger. If Banksy were to make a picture on the side of like a subway and it said the virus is coming or the virus is spreading, what would the value of that be? Like, would you actually pay for it?
Priceless.
I mean, seriously, how much would you bid for something like that? Shout out to Banksy if you're watching.
$1 more than anybody else.
All right, there you go. $1 more. All right, so we're going to play a little word association.
Okay. Cheetos
or Doritos?
Cheetos.
Fuck yeah. I knew I liked you. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Is Satoshi alive or dead?
Alive.
Think so?
Yeah.
Why?
It's probability. 10 years, if the odds that you create something as beautiful as Bitcoin and you're able to articulate, the way that he or she did, probably suggests that they are unlikely to be towards the end of their life, and so 10 years, unlikely.
Okay, it's a good answer. All right, a couple of closing thoughts. If you look at the next 90 to 80 days to 365 days, tell us 3 things that you see that happening that nobody's looking at right now. Things that you think are possibilities, they're out there. 3 big things. It could be a bad thing too.
I'm just going to go with 1. Public pensions will start investing in crypto.
Interesting. When you say investing in crypto, how? Please don't tell me through
they could do
one
it
of the very silvered funds.
They could do it through venture funds. They could do it through public vehicles. They could do it through just buying the assets directly and holding them.
Okay, so here's what I actually think is going to be a big thing. So everyone's like all geeked out about Russia buying $10 billion worth of Bitcoin. Total bullshit story. But probably not too far away from a real story happening, even though it's a bullshit story now. Because
pensions and sovereign wealth are on the way.
And what?
Public pensions and sovereign wealth funds are definitely on the way.
What do you mean sovereign wealth? Like countries?
Yeah, just sovereign wealth funds, right? These funds that are set up that they basically manage the wealth of a country. They invested everything from private funds to public funds, etc. And I also think central banks, right? Like I do think that in, let's call it the next, I'll give myself 5 years on this one. 5 years, a central bank will buy Bitcoin and put it on its balance sheet, and it'll become public.
I think it's faster than that. Here's one for you that I think is such a high probability of happening. Watch Iran, North Korea, and probably the fucked up Argentinians as a country, and maybe even the Russians, start getting into utilizing crypto and more importantly Bitcoin to do commerce outside of their restrictions.
Yeah, they're already doing it.
As politicians, especially in America, put more restrictions on companies like that or countries like that, you're going to see when you push people into a corner, the only way out is towards crypto.
Yeah,
decentralized.
I always describe, the language we use is very intentional, I think, as a country, and so when we put sanctions on people, people are like, hey, we're going to go sanction somebody. I was like, yeah, go sanction them, right? Because, we're getting back at them. If we instead said, hey, we're going to cut them off from the global financial system, and we're actually going to, people in that country are going to be hungry, and they're not going to be able to conduct commerce, and by the way, they're innocent, and that's what we're going to do to them, I think there's a lot less people who are excited about sanctions, and so sanctions are just censorship, right? They're telling somebody else what they can do with their wealth.
Look at what's happening on Patreon. They're literally censoring, them and MasterCard are censoring people from their content.
One of the most dangerous parts about crypto, I think, is that whether we agree or disagree with somebody, everyone has the same access and gets the same benefits from it. And
well, you think that's a dangerous thing? I think that's an actual positive thing.
So I think it's positive from my personal views. I think it's dangerous, meaning that that is where regulators, nation states, etc., don't understand yet how powerful this stuff is, and they're actually going to violently react when they figure out the benefits of that technology to them is the same benefits somebody else can get, and they can't stop a adversary from using it. I think that really is something that hasn't been available before. And I always joke and say, Bitcoin, for example, is a weapon, is a peaceful weapon of the people that when it
I actually
falls
call crypto the asset of the people, the finance of the people, the money of the people.
It's probably one of the only weapons that, if it falls into the wrong hands, can't be used against you. Right? So, you know, if you look at everything from guns to bombs to all kinds of different weapons, if it falls into other hands, they can use it against you. Bitcoin, they can't. And so it's a way for you to, you know, quote unquote, fight back, if you will, or respond, but do it in a way where if for some reason somebody else starts to buy Bitcoin as well, it doesn't necessarily hurt you. Right? It could actually help you.
So here's an interesting thing we didn't talk about. What's your whole perspective on the Bitmain IPO and the drama between Jihan?
I literally know nothing about it, so we'll see. I mean, look, there's going to be companies that are super successful, companies that, you know, blow up in terms of positive, you know, growth and then flame out, and there's companies that never make it. And so I think that all of this is just, you know, pretty natural stuff that happens in business across different industries.
I think it's just leadership. I think the companies that have strong leadership are in a good place, and the companies that have weak leadership are going to... Oh, go ahead. You want to say that?
No, it's okay.
Just doing a sign language right behind us. All right, so listen, we're out of here. I'm Chris Champion. You are?
Pomp.
That's right. Pomp and Dump. He's got a podcast that's very worth listening to. He's got an email. What is it, $30 a month, $300 a year? It is the best $30 a month you get. I mean, listen, it's $1 a day. Do you get coffee or do you read his shit? And let me tell you, his shit is good.
Yeah,
so we're here in Singapore. It took me 25 hours to get here. It was worth it to sit down with one of the best of the motherfucking best. Pomp, peace out.
Thanks, man.